Well, hey, what's going on, folks? Welcome to a special edition of Chatterbox Reds. Reds made a little noise today. Hot stove starting to heat up, and I had to bring on my guy Bryce Spalding to talk about all of it. Bryce, how we doing?
Good. Always good when the Red Legs get better.
Yeah, and they got a little better today. Yeah, excited to be here with you tonight. Of course, as always, like the stream. Takes 2 seconds of your time. Like it. More likes help us provide more content for you. I was driving around, had a busy work day as I'm kind of wrapping up my old job, start full-time with Chatterbox here January 1. So kind of saw the news as I was driving. I've tried to piece things together as much as I can, but we'll try to break down this news. That's why I had to bring on my guy Bryce to really talk about it. But here we go. Emilio Pagán, that's the Reds' first, big-time signing of the offseason. Relief pitcher, had a really, really great 2023 season. Has had a really solid overall career, but had struggled a few years prior to his kind of, somewhat of a breakout season last year, or maybe a re-breakout season. Reds signed him to a 2-year, $16 million deal that has a player option after 1 year. He does get a bonus if traded. The one thing I think the Reds probably really liked about him, Bryce, 59 plus appearances in each of the last 3 years. And then there's kind of some good and bad here. Career 1.6 home runs per 9. Not great for Great America Ballpark. Last year, he had 0.7 home runs per 9. On the flip side, he's got a much higher career strikeouts per 9 innings at 10.3, but he was down to 8.4 last year. And then his fly ball rate just dropped. Home run per fly ball rate dropped drastically last year. So kind of a mixed bag. Reds paying him a nice little chunk of change for a reliever. So Bryce, kind of, I guess, just let's start overall. What's your overall thoughts on this signing here?
Yeah, I think it's a positive one. I think it's one that don't view it as they signed him to be a closer or a high leverage guy. View it as maybe a more expensive Buck Farmer replacement. Like, he's a better version of the Buck Farmer they're gonna get. Like you mentioned, he pitches a lot. He's available. He's durable. He does what he needs to do there. Like, he's not going to be an 8th or 9th inning guy, more than likely, which he can be. He's shown that in his career, but the Reds don't need him to be that, and I think that that's a positive. Whenever you're signing guys like this, they don't have to put the entire weight of the bullpen on their shoulders. They can just come in and be themselves and perform. So I think it's a good fit. I think it's really a big upgrade from the Derek Law and Buck Farmer middle relief core. I do really like the tweak that he made to his arsenal, which we can get into a little bit, but he did make a pretty big tweak and really improved his results in 2023. So that's always good to see.
Yeah, kind of the thing that stands out to me, obviously, is the amount of money. $8 million. That's a lot for a reliever, especially with the Reds. Last year, Buck Farmer was the highest paid Cincinnati Reds reliever at, I think, $1.75 million. So the Reds must clearly really like him. There must be something that they really like. And the Reds have had, at least last year, they had a entire bullpen full of dirt cheap relievers that they were able to evaluate and find a lot of diamonds in the rough. So hopefully that translates when you have $8 million to spend on one of these relievers. You might be at that next level. Now, maybe that's a little bit of wishful thinking, but definitely the Reds are, investing in their bullpen. The other thing that does kind of stand out, I mean, the first free agent, I think signing was Ronaldo Lopez. That was $10 million a year. So, I mean, this is almost kind of the going rate. I personally, Bryce, don't really care how much the Reds spend on short-term deals. I say, max them out. I would rather overpay for a 2-year deal than underpay for an 8-year deal anytime. And I think that's how you keep your organization healthy. That's how you avoid rebuilds and all those other kind of scary things.
Yeah, and like you said, well, what's the difference if he got 2 for 12 million or 2 for 14 million? Like, is there really a difference? Like, they probably gave him a couple extra million to come pitch in GABP. Like, it is what it is. He's a good pitcher. He's going to make the Reds better. That's a big deal.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think that's a good point, Bryce, is that there probably is a little bit of a premium that you have to pay for these relievers because obviously Emilio Pagán, he's 32 years old. I believe he'll be 33 next year. He probably still thinking I can get one more contract after this. So if I'm going to go to Great American Ballpark, I'm probably going to hurt my value a little bit at that next contract. So you're going to have to pay me a little bit more now. And that just is what it is with Great American Ballpark. On the flip side, the Reds can make up that by being able to sign players like we've seen over the last couple of years that, hey, I want to come to Great American Ballpark to reestablish my value as a hitter. So this is just kind of, I guess, the flip side of it. Talk a little bit more about his arsenal, kind of, your research. I know you've dug in this a lot more than me today. You've been on top of it, Bryce. What do you think about the arsenal, the changes, and kind of what's made him take kind of that big leap from 2022 to 2023?
Yeah, obviously everybody loves the split. I think that's a really popular pitch because it just looks nasty. You see the flailing swings and misses and so on and so forth. His split's not as good as Fernando Cruz's. Fernando Cruz's split's elite. Like, you don't get that very often. It's one of the best pitches in all of baseball. So Pagán kind of went away from his splitter a little bit. He's done a lot of right on right splits, and it doesn't bode well a lot of the times. That's usually how you give up home runs and extra base hits and things like that. So he decreased his splitter usage by about 8%. He increased his cutter usage by about 10%. And the big thing that really kind of took his arsenal and his game to the next step was he turned his cutter into a true cutter rather than more of a slider. So with that, you can work off your fastball a little bit more. You can tunnel it a little bit better. And versus his slider or curveball or his cutter that he was throwing in 2022 was getting hit really hard. His cutter in 2023 was one of the best pitches in all of baseball as well. So he tweaked it a little bit less depth, a little bit more velo, and a little bit firm in the zone there. So he did a really good job of kind of resurrecting his career, honestly. I mean, he was 31, coming off a really not a great year in San Diego, and did a really nice job last year. So the thing about him is he attacks hitters. He comes right at people. He's not afraid to get hit. He does get hit kind of hard, but he limits what happens with that. He only gave up 5 home runs last year, I think it was. Like, he was one of the top pitchers in the league in like infield fly outs. So yeah, then maybe the fly ball percentage is a hair high, but fly ball percentage, and if you're allowing 18% of infield fly balls, like there's a big difference there. So I don't know how sustainable the fly ball percentage with Great American is. I think that's a little overblown anyway. Lucas Sims is the highest fly ball percentage pitcher in all of baseball last year with minimum of 50 innings. So I think that you don't look so much into the fly ball percentage, look at more at what the pitcher is going to be doing and how he's attacking each hitter, and I think you'll have a lot more success.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing about relievers, Bryce, is they're all risky. Even the elite ones, relievers are volatile. Like, we know that. So you're risking it all the time with whatever you do with relievers. I don't want the Reds to spend a king's ransom on their bullpen. I think maybe 10 million is maybe like about the max that I'd be willing to do. But I don't have an issue because it's just such a short-term 2-year deal. And you know what? If this guy pitches great, it might be a 1-year deal, right?
Yeah.
And you say, hey, thanks for the year, man. Appreciate it. Hell, maybe he's so good you can offer him a qualifying offer. That's maybe really dreaming. That's I don't. Has there ever been a reliever get a qualifying offer?
Maybe
probably
Hater.
not. Yeah, maybe Hater. That's about it. But yeah, I look. It's exciting to see the Reds. making a move and kind of getting rolling. I think this hopefully uh, uh, allows some people to take a deep breath and step back and say,
Yeah.
okay, they're actually going to spend a little bit of money. They haven't been completely lying to us. Yeah, I think this is the first of a lot to come. We'll get into that a little bit more. But just, I don't know, Bryce, any other, I don't have any incredible thoughts about Pagán other than, hey, I like it. I'm for it. I don't think it's some giant needle mover, but it's another quality arm, or at least has the potential to be a really quality arm with some upside that you've added to your team. And the Reds are better than they were yesterday. That's pretty much how I view it right now.
Yeah, and I think too, that one thing I really wanted to kind of hit on tonight was, like, I've seen so many people talking about the fly ball, ground ball percentage, and I think a lot of that just in general is a little overblown. Like, look more about what a pitcher is going to be offering from hitter to hitter versus, oh, they have a 40% ground ball rate, he fits GABP well, or he has a 20% ground ball rate, he's going to be terrible at GABP. Like, Buck Farmer is a perfect example of a guy that makes no sense whatsoever that he would pitch well at GABP, but he performed better at home than on the road. And in both years he was pitched for the Reds. So that's the thing. Like, as you said, relievers are fickle. They're weird. You never know exactly how things are going to go. So just trust that what he did with his arsenal is going to stick and continue moving forward. He's going to be a good pitcher for the Reds.
Yeah, one other just point that I'll make before we kind of wrap it up and maybe just kind of open the discussion of what we kind of like to see next for the Reds. One thing I really like, doing just a little bit of research on Pagán, we saw last year it felt like the Reds bullpen was exhausted at the end of the year, right? I think we all felt that, and for good reason. They were used hard and heavy, and they had to be used hard and heavy, or the Reds never would have even have had a chance late in the year because the starting pitching was just not very good at all early in the year. Pagán gave up 1 run his first appearance on September 2nd. Then he 9 appearances in September, no runs, 2 appearances in the playoff, no runs. So this is a guy that finished the year strong. So not just only is he has that reputation of a rubber arm, but he also pitched really, really well down the stretch. Now, does that mean it's gonna be a for sure pitch well down the stretch next year? No. A lot of that stuff can be very fluky and whatnot, but he did finish the year strong, and the Reds bullpen as a whole did not finish the year strong. So it's just nice to know that he hopefully has that endurance. And whenever I say, rubber arm, I just want to like knock on wood as hard as I can, because you're only you're a rubber arm until you're not, right, Bryce? I mean, with the rubber arm there does come some mileage, but yeah, it's just nice to see the Reds kind of jumping out here early in the reliever market. How good or how much value's in this deal, I don't really know. We're gonna have to see how the rest of the offseason plays. But again, it's like $16 million over 2 years. That's not a lot of money in baseball today. I mean, hell, this guy's making $1 million more than, I know it's a sore subject, than Joey Votto's getting paid not to play for the Reds next year. So, I mean, like, it's not that big of a deal. I like to see them spending their money on guys that they didn't have to trade a prospect for. This is just a straight free agent. All you had to give away was cold, hard cash. So let's get into, Bryce, the rest of the offseason. And if you guys got any questions in the chat, we'll hang out here for a little bit. I'm not going to try to be on here too long because I got to pack because I'm heading to Cincinnati tomorrow night after work. So, but we'll answer any questions you have. First question kind of leads right into it. Our guy, Mark Fetters, appreciate you, Mark, as always. What position do you think they'll sign next? I mean, Bryce, it feels like starting pitching is the hot. At least it feels like to me the Reds probably want to secure at least one starter before they maybe look towards, I'm not saying they're not looking now because there was reports of like Candelario, but it feels like they want to get that pitcher first and then kind of worry about whatever's next. Do you kind of feel that way?
Yeah, I think pitching that swing type type role, I think that's something Corral really kind of hit on in the hot stove that he talked about, was how important it is to have somebody that is comfortable with starting and relieving. So there's a lot of arms out there that have done that. So I think that that's a really interesting dynamic, because that person's probably not going to cost the Sonny Gray like $20-25 million contract, but that's a really important role on your team. And as you're kind of progressing through the season, somebody that can fill in. You don't have to have your Brett Kennedys and Levi Stouds, those type of guys that aren't ready to make starts in the big leagues. And if you do sign a Nick Martinez or a Sean Manaea type, and can kind of have the person that's done both, it really does help you there. So I think that's kind of who they'll target next. And then, like you mentioned, if they are going to make that splash of the Glasnows or the Biebers or Cease or whoever that may be that they're going to target next, like that stuff can come together so quickly. Like you just have to keep building, and if the opportunity presents itself to get one of those guys, you have to do it. So they're going to keep building their team elsewhere, and then if that splash does come, they're going to take it and go with it.
What do you think of some of these starting pitching names that have been brought out? I don't know if I've actually saw a report that the Reds have had conversations on Cease. Definitely hasn't been as much, if there is not as much chatter as Tyler Glasnow and Shane Bieber. What do you think about those two guys? And I guess throw in Cease as well, just because he is a hot trade topic right now.
Yeah, I think Glasnow and Bieber are interesting because they both dealt with some injury history even as early as last year. So I think the biggest thing that with both of those guys is their rentals. They're literally be here for a year and more than likely moving on. They had something similar with Gray in 2019 when they traded for him. But I think it's interesting. I think Glasnow would be awesome. I think it would be really cool to have a true front of the rotation ace, solidified ace that you could kind of rely on. Maybe he only pitches 120 to 140 innings for you, but if you do make the postseason, which I think we all expect the Reds to make the postseason next year and make that next jump, that's a guy that can come in and legitimately dominate a game. So he would be probably my first choice amongst the ones that seem a little bit more realistic. Like you said, I haven't heard them rumored on Cease. I feel like that's a Dodgers all over him. But Cease would obviously be the first choice. He's a solidified 1 or 2 with 2 years of control. Like that's Luis Castillo again. But like, I don't know if the Reds are going to give the asset that's going to take to get a Dylan Cease there. So I would definitely prefer Glasnow of the two between Bieber and Glasnow. I don't know how much Bieber has in the tank left. I know he's lost a little bit of velocity, had a little bit of forearm troubles last year, which is always scary. So would definitely be very happy with either, obviously. But yeah, let's do it if it's there.
Yeah, I don't see Cease just because of how much control he still has left. I don't think the Reds are going to be willing to give up the kind of trade package that warrants Dylan Cease in return. I'm not saying it's impossible. I doubt the Reds are going to go that far. Now there's been a lot. So Glasnow versus Bieber. I think there's pros and cons with both of those guys. I actually like that Glasnow cost more. Glasnow's making $25 million. And there was a fun conversation on off the bench today about Glasnow versus Bieber. Bieber's set to make Bieber's in arbitration. Glasnow signed a contract through his arbitration years, but Bieber's set to make about $12 million. And why I like Glasnow cost more is when you cost more, you're going to demand less prospects back. So basically, instead of trading a prospect, you're just taking on more money. Now, you're still going to have to give up something of value for Tyler Glasnow. I don't think the Rays are going to let him walk, are going to trade him for nothing. I think there's got to be a team that's going to give up something for a pitcher of his caliber. But he kind of, I think, fits a little bit more of, you might be able to make a package that's going to hurt, but it's not gonna like rip through your farm system. And I think Glasnow just has more upside than Bieber at this point in his career. It just feels like there's a lot of red flags with Bieber. I know he did pitch really well at the end of last year, where he kind of felt like, all right, maybe he's getting back on track. Honestly, though, either one of those guys make the Reds better.
Yeah.
So but I also Bryce, I see the Mets look like they're signing Luis Severino for 1 year, $13 million, and I'm just like, man, you can get him and hold on to all your prospects. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's where it's kind of, do you kind of feel like it's a hard balance there with that?
Yeah, it's tough because I mean the market's kind of been set on like the mid to lower tier starting pitching. Like Gibson got what 12 million, Lynn got 11 million, Severino got 13 million. So like that's the going rate, and Sonny Gray got 25 million a year. Like that's a lot of change, man. Like I get it; those guys are really really good, but definitely interesting to kind of see how quickly like these guys start to go. Like are we going to start seeing a run of guys go? Do we see a trade first? Do we see one of these chips fall? So there's always a breaking point in the offseason where it feels like deals start to go, and it does feel like it kind of starting to go now. I know we've had like 5 or 6 deals happen today, so definitely interesting. It's a tough balance for sure.
Well, of course, the winter meetings are next weekend. This is what a Price, what a time to be alive. You got Reds Fest this weekend, and then leading like right up into the winter meeting. So it's going to be these like next like 7 days, 8 days are going to be the most exciting for a Reds fan in the off season. And then there'll probably be a little bit of action, but then once we kind of get into January, we'll have a cold couple months, and then we'll be back. We got some more questions. We'll get to those here in a minute. I've kind of gone through. I can star some of them, so I have saw some of your questions, and we'll get to them. And if I don't get to them, just ask again. I try the best I can to live click and go along as I go, and also try to have somewhat coherent sentences. Let's talk about the position side. I know I've kind of given my man. I want Jorge Soler, one Jorge Soler, one Jorge Soler. I like Candelario. I like both of those guys. I would be happy with a Teoscar Hernandez. Any offensive players that really stand out to you? And I guess also, while you answer that, how big of a need do you think there is?
Yeah, that's a good one. I actually put something out today. I think Candelario is probably my favorite fit because I love the switch hitting aspect of it. I think that he would really bring a interesting dynamic. He doesn't strike out a lot. He hits a ton of extra base hits. He's a doubles machine. So I think he's a good fit and offensively just because he can really hit anywhere in the lineup. He can play first, third, and DH. He does a lot of things for your team that are positive. But to kind of go a different direction, I think solely Reds actually, solely from the NOLA or not, whatever it is, the pod there. But he mentioned Mitch Garver and kind of doing not a 3 catcher deal, but more of like a 20% catcher for Garver and then DH and a couple other things there. And I think that's a really interesting option. Mitch Garver's a really, really good hitter. I think he's going to have a little bit bigger market with like the Red Sox and a couple other teams there, which they're hard to compete with. But if he wants to come and he can hit and be a middle of the order bat there for us, I think that would be an interesting one. Going back to need, I do think the Reds need to add a little bit more consistency to the lineup. I know we all love the young guys and everything that they're going to be able to do, hopefully, but there's always the but of, do they have a sophomore slump? Does Steer get figured out a little bit? Do they deal with some injuries? Like, I do think they need to add a bat, maybe even like another, maybe 2. Like, who knows what they can do? Maybe they bring in 2, like 5 to 10 million guys, and kind of solidify the offense there. Maybe they keep India. Like, I know we really think India is going to be traded, but maybe they keep India and use him in a little bit other places. Maybe they see if he can play left field. So I'm sold on the offense. I think the offense is going to be really good, but there's always the consistency factor that, I mean, we saw how much they struggled the last 2 months of the season. I really would hate to go through that again and like really wish that, hey, man, we could have had Jeimer Candelario for, I don't know, $10 million or $12 million on a 2-3 year deal, and it would have made a lot of sense right now. So,
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to get to the trade deadline and wish you would sign someone and then have to give up a plethora of prospects for. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Mitch Garver's an interesting. I was actually talking to a friend about him the other day, and yeah, he would be interesting. You know, kind of would give you a third catching option, not a Kirk Casale. He's an offensive guy. He was DHing for the World Series champs. But yeah, he would kind of, he could, maybe catch, I don't know, a game a week, and just give you like that option. So he's interesting. There's a lot of different the weird thing about this offseason, Bryce, for me, at least kind of what I expected it would be a year ago this time, is that there's so many ways that you can make this team better, but there isn't like necessarily one obvious way, other than maybe obviously newer pitching. But you could there's a reasonable take that you could just go sign all relievers if that's the way the market is, and you can make your team better and that way, or you just sign all starting pitchers, or you just go crazy offense. I thought there was going to be more holes in this team at this point than there are. And there really isn't like a glaring hole in this team. Does this team need to get better? Absolutely. Does this team need to sign players? They need to kind of get over that next hump. But there's not like a clear, obvious, this is what you have to do. Do you kind of feel that way?
Yeah, it's crazy because, I mean, we expected them to debut last year. I thought Ellie would debut in like July. I thought McLean would come up in probably June or July. But I mean, the fact that all of them came up and performed relatively well too. It's not like anybody fell flat on their face. I mean, relative to like, look at Spencer Steer September from 2022. He fell on his face. Like, he was not good in 2022, and it made him better. He talked about it on the pod last week on the Reds Hot Stuff. He was like, coming up in September of 2022 made me a better hitter going forward. So I think all of those guys getting experience last year is only going to help and only going to prop up who they're going to be in 2024. So yeah, I mean, like you said, there's not a ton of holes. I mean, I think the biggest hole right now is another right-handed hitting outfielder. I know we love Stuart Fairchild on this pod, but you could probably upgrade that spot relatively easy, but for some decent change there. So if I don't love the three left-handed hitting outfielders, maybe that's a way that they can explore to get better in other ways. Maybe they try to move a Fraley or whoever that may be. I'm not speculating. I haven't heard anything, but that's just my thoughts. Like there's, like you said, there's so many different ways that they can go to make sense and make this team better. So there really isn't. We got 2 months to this left. There's a ton of time that we can talk about all the different scenarios there.
Well, you mentioned it. Ricky Logan asked the question, chances Fraley gets traded. I would put them pretty low. I think if Jake Fraley would have had a more healthy season, I think the chances would actually be higher. But I just think his value right now is probably not high enough to where his upside is, in my opinion, and probably the opinion of the Reds. Because when this dude is healthy, he is an elite hitter against right-handed pitching. Now, the knock on him, he hasn't been healthy enough really over the course of his career. He's had a lot of really fluky, dumb injuries that aren't necessarily like, anything wrong with him, just like some really unfortunate injuries. But I will say this. I mean, you look at the Reds last year. I know there's a lot of talk about, well, the Reds with India and his leadership. Jake Fraley, when he was in the lineup and he was healthy, the Reds were a different team than they were when he wasn't healthy. So I'd have to be getting the value that I think Jake Fraley's worth, and I don't think anyone's gonna give that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's tough because whenever you are trading a true platoon player, it doesn't help that he's carrying an injury baggage with him. So I think, like, I thought the Dodgers were a decent fit for Fraley, but they re-signed Hayward, and they're probably going to re-sign Peralta as well. Like, they're probably just going to run back that duo as well. So, like you said, I don't know if he's going to provide more value to anybody else besides the Reds in regards to what he can bring to the table there.
India traded before Christmas. I mean, if I'm setting the over/under, I would say yes. I mean, I think that the winter meetings are the most likely time anyone gets traded. So there are trades after the winter meetings, but the bulk of the big trades are. Um, you're with me on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't know. There's a lot of teams that fit India. Like I think Reds and Four mentioned it earlier, but I think the Red Sox are an incredible fit for India, and they have a new GM, and that's a splashy move. They just traded for the Rookie of the Year. He's going to be Dustin Pedroia 2.0, playing second base, playing hard, always getting his uniform dirty, that type of thing. Like I think he fits what they want to do so well that it's like it's a match made in heaven. And I really kind of like the Red Sox system. I think that there's some guys that I know a lot of people aren't going to want to hear that, but Jonathan India should be traded for prospects, and I know you've talked about that before. But I think that it's a perfect time to kind of replenish there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see Reds Fest this weekend. He is on the list there. There has been players that I can't remember a player specific, but I believe there was a player that got traded right before that was like on the list. That of course obviously went off of the list. Did the Reds made someone go to Reds Fest last year? It was a reliever, and then they DFA'd him like 2 weeks later. Who was
it?
They
got Bubba Thompson on there this year.
Yeah, Bubba Thompson ain't gonna make that major league roster, but hey, he gets to go to Reds Fest, so congrats. There was, if anyone in the chat can remember, there was someone that was at Reds Fest last year, was a reliever, and he got dumped like 2 weeks later, and I was like, man, that poor guy had to go sit through Reds Fest all day. Although hey, maybe he had a good time. How much value does India have on the trade market? This is the $1 million question. I don't know. I mean, look, Jonathan India is a valuable player to certain teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said it a million times, so I'm sorry to the people that, watch all the time, but India's a player that if you're in a full win now mode and you don't have like a lot of, you need just some bats, India's great for you. I don't feel like the Reds are kind of in that spot because they have just such a solid with Marte, Ellie, McLean. And I don't know if India really fits that utility role guy. He's not going to be happy with that type of role. So I don't know. I would be all for the Reds trading him for lower level prospects. I feel like that's what the best return you can get back is, just because of what the type of team that's trading for him is going to be willing to give up.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point there with the win now team. Like I see a lot of people are like, oh, he's going to go to the White Sox or he's going to go to wherever. Those teams aren't going to trade for Jonathan India. He's in arbitration now. He's going to be even more expensive as the years kind of go on here. So whenever you're looking for possible deals or potential suitors for India, only look for teams that are more than likely going to be competing this year, are not afraid to give up assets for a guy that's going to probably come in and play immediately for them. So I think that's why I think about the Red Sox, just because they're kind of not in desperation mode, but in Boston, a couple losing seasons in a row is like meltdown mode, and they fired their really good GM for no reason, and so on and so forth there. But that's why I don't know. I just got a weird feeling about it.
You need to find a team that was in the same spot the Reds were in going into 2020 when they had to go out and sign Mike Moustakas. That's the team you need to go find to trade Jonathan India to. That's the team. So hopefully that team exists. All right. What do you think was the Reds' upper limit on Sonny Gray? Will they offer more for Bieber? Bieber's not a free agent. I'm assuming maybe talking about an extension. That's a great question. I don't know if they'd offer more. I think the Reds were probably close. I don't think they were that far off on Gray. I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't have gone that far, but the fact that the Reds were like mentioned there until the end makes me think that they were, because it wasn't like, there wasn't a ton of teams listed, right? It was the Reds, the Cardinals, and was there one other team?
I don't even think there was another one. I don't have specifics, but I will say that I know the Reds were very close, and I know that there's a lot to be said about how much the Reds did offer there. And you don't get mentioned in the Aaron Nola. Jeff Passan put the Reds in the Aaron Nola sweepstake. That's $170 million that Aaron Nola received from the Phillies. So, yeah, I just really think that says a lot about the Reds. And there's a couple things with the Cardinals in Gray deal that makes it a little bit more intriguing for him to take that. First and foremost, he's going to be making $35 million at age 36. Like, that's tough to pass up. For one, who knows if he's going to even be pitching at age 36. And then he got a full no trade clause. He got a couple other things. I know there's a mutual option at the end there for $30 million. So the Cardinals really boosted that deal in order for it to make a lot of sense. I know he talked about how he always wanted to play in St. Louis and this, that, and the other. And I think he fed the St. Louis media what they wanted to hear, and they're the best friends in baseball and so on and so forth there. But hey, I'm happy for Sonny. He got paid, and he deserves every bit of it. And we'll see him in April or whenever we play him.
Yeah, Sonny Gray was awesome with the Reds. Pitched incredibly well for the Reds for several years. I think if 2020 is a full season, a lot of players like Sonny Gray, like maybe even like a guy like Mike Moustakas, I think they're viewed a lot differently, like in terms of like the Reds, like lore and fandom and all that. I would have loved for the Reds to get Sonny Gray. When I think it got to that much money, I wouldn't have like been mad if the Reds signed that, but it kind of got into close to that uncomfortable range of like, that's a lot of risk. I think the Cardinals are a little more desperate. That's why they ended up going there. I don't think they did anything wrong at all. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, the Cardinals, that's a terrible contract to us. But no, they needed a good pitcher. They went and got one. But I hope that contract completely bites him in the ass and he sucks. So we'll see. All right, Reds at 4. Pagán doesn't make Sims expendable in a trade, right? He's his last year of arbitration. I don't think so, because the Reds could have kept Sims for a lot cheaper. I think the Reds, obviously could use both. I would never put anything past Nick Kroll. I think with Nick Kroll, he's always open to trade anyone if the price is right. But I don't know if I see anyone giving up enough for Sims to get traded.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way. You may as well he's a high leverage arm. High leverage arms are kind of hard to come by for pretty cheap, so I would like to keep him.
Oh, Joel asking the hard-hitting question. What % chance do you put on Ohtani signing in Cincinnati? Should we start a GoFundMe? 0.1%. Am I too high, Bryce?
0.01. He's not moving.
You know what? I will ask you this in a more fun way, because me and Trace were talking about this the other night. If it was up to you, would you want the Cubs to sign him?
No, absolutely not. I've seen that go around, and I think that, I do not want to play Shohei Ohtani for 15, 16 games a year or whatever that may be. Like, I get it. I get the sentiment of, like, if the contract does go poorly, yes, like, we want that to be one of the rivals of the Reds. But if it goes as we probably expect, of him being the greatest player of all time, then no, I don't really want to see him that often. I'd rather him play for the Dodgers or the Giants or whoever and stay out on the West Coast and do his thing.
I go back and forth on that, because I think that contract could age really, really bad and completely like hamstring the Cubs. I don't know. That's tough. It's whatever. All right. Man, I wish I knew what the plans were to get Blake Dunn on the roster. Perhaps 300 more minor league at-bats. This is a good question. I love trust me, we'll do Blake Dunn talk anytime there is. Blake Dunn was a awesome player to watch. Every time Blake Dunn had an at-bat, once I kind of really started getting invested in him in, I heard about him for the first time at the end of last year with Justin Rock, former Tortugas play-by-play announcer, and he was like, this dude Blake Dunn, he's awesome. And I was kind of like, okay, I kind of, and then he just like, I was looking at some of his numbers in like May and June. I was like, hey, maybe this guy is something. And he's just a fun player to watch. But Sean, Blake Dunn and Jacob Hurtubise is exactly what you want. They are players that I think are major league caliber players, but you can stock them in AAA. They have options. That's great. You love having that. So I think you hope that the Reds don't have plans for Blake Dunn or Jacob Hurtubise to get at bats. You hope their plan A is for those guys to get 0 at bats. Because if that's their plan A, the major league roster is better, and they're probably still going to end up needing to get at bats at some point because that's just how baseball works and there's injuries. So you want to stockpile as many of these guys as you can in your system. And I hope Blake Dunn forces their hand at some point. It'd be great if you kind of get in that problem. I hope the Reds keep having a lot of the same problems they had last year where, like, oh, we always have too many guys. I hope that's an every year problem because that's what healthy organizations do. The Rays always have that problem.
Yeah, and I think one thing to consider with that is all 3 of the Reds starting outfielders last year missed time due to injury at some point. Benson, Fraley, and Friedel. So there's going to be those opportunities. That's why you probably need to sign somebody. That's probably why you have the Jacob Hurtubise and Blake Dunn. And hell, they may be hitting 360 in June or July, and Will Benson and Jake Fraley and TJ Friedel are tearing it up in the big leagues. And that, like you said, that's a good problem to have. Like that, the Reds have never, and at least recently, have never had this pipeline of the guys that the AAA team's actually going to be good. Like the Louisville Bats were good last year for the first time ever. Like we weren't just having retreads, and like no offense to the Jason Vosslers of the world and those guys. Matt Reynolds, he just signed with I think he signed with a KBO team. He's gonna hit like 50 home runs over there. But
I hope so.
Those guys just, I don't know. I'm just happy that we have real life people that can help the major league roster there.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, what else do we got on here? How bad did Marte get injured? I haven't saw any updates on this. Have you, Bryce?
Yeah, they said it wasn't too bad. He's going to get checked out in Cincinnati. He's coming to Reds Fest, so I think he's fine. They're probably going to shut him down till February, but he walked off the field. They said they made it seem way more dramatic than it was. They're like he had to be like helped off the field, but it was pretty much one guy, and Marte was just walking with his arm over him. So I think he's fine. When
the Twitter legend Genosaurus Rex found the clip and I was like, okay, I think I can, yeah, I can breathe again. And I'm sure folks go on to x.com. There'll be Reds fans tweeting out pictures of Marte walking around at Reds Fest reporting on it. And that's why Reds fandom is undefeated. I love it. This is all for you, Bryce Spalding. What are your thoughts on Alfredo Duno, Ricardo Cabrera, and Sheng En Lei? Did I say that right? The Reds have killed it in international signings recently.
They have killed it, and they have another really exciting prospect coming in January, Adolfo Sanchez. So yeah, we'll start with Duno. I think he's the best catching prospect. Well, I guess Tyler Stevenson was a good catching prospect, but yeah, we'll go with Tyler Stevenson. He's a really, really good catching prospect. He's young. His swing is super dynamic. I just posted a video of him on my Twitter the other day if you want to check it out. But he has like a. I know you guys are going to not like the comp, but he almost reminds me of Gary Sanchez in a lot of ways. But Gary Sanchez was a really highly coveted player coming up. He just didn't take care of his body when he got to the big leagues. But he's that level of hitter. He's that level of, if he can really swing it, he's got a lot of power. So I'm really excited about him. He didn't catch all of last year with an elbow issue. So I'm excited to see him get back behind the plate and kind of refine some of his skills there. He's so young. I don't even know if he's going to come over and play in the Arizona League or not this year. I think he may even play another year in the Dominican League. So we'll see on him. Ricardo Cabrera had a monster year in the Arizona League last year. I'm really excited about him. He's probably one of the best pure contact hitters the Reds have in the system. He ended up hitting like probably close to 320 last year in the Arizona League. I don't have the numbers pulled up with me, but he's playing winter ball in Australia, I believe. I think they stream those games if you guys want to check them out. But I'm really excited about him. I don't know if he's a shortstop in the future. He's probably a second baseman, maybe a third baseman if he's got the arm for it. But I'm really excited about his hit tool. I think he'll progress a little bit more with power as well. And then Cheng-In Lee, he just played the field last year in the Arizona League. He was a little overmatched. I think that was expected. He came right over. He was playing high school baseball pretty much in Korea. I believe that's where they signed him out of. So I think he's going to have a little bit more of a waiting period. I think they're probably still deciding on if he's going to pitch or if he's going to hit. I think they like his contact skills as a hitter. He's fast. He can go get it in center field. So I think he's going to be a little bit more of a project than the other two. The other two are really like legitimate prospects. Like I think they're legitimate guys on, like you can start seeing them pop up on like MLB top 100 list coming up soon. So I think the first two are really, really exciting. I'm still in wait and see mode on Lee. I'm not totally sure what we'll see out of him. I think he'll probably spend at least another year in the Arizona Complex League there, just continue to develop, get stronger, and continue to go through that there.
Australian Winter Bowl. I got to check that out. That's actually in English, right?
Yeah. No, there's a guy on Reds Twitter. He caught one of Ricardo Cabrera's foul balls.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm gonna check that out. What time are those games?
like 3 a.m.
Yeah. Next time I'm at 3 a.m. Yeah, wife's gonna kill me. Why are you so tired today? Yeah, I was watching Ricardo Cabrera until 5 o'clock in the morning. Oh boy, get me in trouble, Bryce. Well, good question here from David Brown. If India's traded, does Barrero make the opening day roster? He's out of options. My take on Barrero here is there's no reason to make any sort of decision on Barrero right now because he is out of options, but he doesn't really cost you any money to hold onto your roster. So keep him, have him go through spring training, see what he looks like in spring training. Don't plan for him to make the opening day roster. Have a team that again, kind of the same thing with not letting Blake Dunn be your plan A. And if there's a need, you keep him around, you put him on the opening day roster. I'd be all for the Reds even sort of hiding him if they feel like, hey, he made some positive progressions into camp. But if he comes, you don't really see any sort of progress, and there's not a need for him, then you get rid of him. But it's not a decision that I think you can very easily kick down the can at least another 4 months.
Yeah, and not to be the bearer of bad news, but he's hitting like $130 in the Dominican Winter League, and he's really, really struggled. I feel bad for him. Yeah, everybody that has followed me for a decently long time knows that I am Jose Barrero's #1 fan. Like I legitimately, used to go to war for that guy over some of the dumbest stuff, but I really like him. I think he's a really good dude, and I'm rooting for him like crazy, but unfortunately just hasn't been able to put it together. And yeah, like you said, they'll probably come into spring training with him, but if we expect the roster to shake out like it is, I don't see a world where he makes the opening day roster.
Would you say the Pagán signing is a sign that the Reds will spend on a starter, and would you rather them spend or trade for one? Like I said, I'd much rather them spend. Now that's not as easy said and done. I don't want them to go sign Blake Snell to a 12-year contract. Like, don't do that. It's got to be reasonable. But obviously, spending, especially on short-term deals, is way better than trading. But yeah, I think the Reds are still absolutely looking for a starter. I don't think this changes really anything ever. I felt pretty confident before they were going to add a starter this offseason, at least one.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I think it means a lot. A lot of things are about to start happening here soon, and I'm very, very excited about kind of where this is going to go.
All right, here we go. Here's a fun November 29th topic. Can you guys give an honest take on David Bell? I think he's been great with what he's given talent-wise. Would love to see him manage a top 3-4 talent MLB team. Yeah, I'm with David Bell stan. This team was projected to win 60-something games and finished with 82. I love to see this guy get a crack with a really, really good roster and see what he could do.
Yeah, and I think I get a lot of heat for it, but I'm very much in the managers don't matter as much as everybody thinks field. So yeah, I think David does something that a lot of other managers don't get credit for, and that's keeping a really good clubhouse. Everybody loves playing for David Bell. Nobody leaves the Cincinnati Reds and says, "Oh, I hate the culture. I hate all this. I hate that." Like, he's done a great job of establishing a really good culture, a really good place to play. People want to come play here. I know even Tommy Pham, of all people, spoke highly of the Reds organization and their clubhouse there. So, yeah, I'm happy David Bell's the Reds manager.
All right. Well, you got any other final thoughts here, Bryce, before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, I'm really excited. I think there's going to be some movement, even more so in the coming days. Obviously, going into the winter meetings, I'm excited to see kind of the impact Kral's able to make on the roster. I'm excited. I think that he's got a lot of really good plans for this team, and I'm excited to kind of get to the line there and see kind of where we are.
Yeah. Well, as a reminder, I'll be at Reds Fest this weekend, co-hosting with my guy Justin Kinder live on ESPN 1410 in Dayton. That's from 11 to 1. Supposed to have some players and personnel coming by that we'll get to interview, and then we're hoping to be able to record all those interviews. We'll post them up here on the YouTube channel and then your podcast feed. So, of course, make sure to subscribe to Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. Turn on that bell, hit the bell in the top right corner, turn on notifications so you're notified anytime we have new content come up. And if you're at Reds Fest this weekend, please stop by, say hello. I'll be, roaming around. I'll be there just all day Saturday. I won't be there on Friday. But looking forward to coming down for Reds Fest. I think it's gonna have a fun vibe this year. Last year was fun, but this year is gonna have, I think, a really exciting vibe. And who knows? Maybe the Reds will make like some big move on Saturday. That seems like right up Nick Kral's alley. Just it's like 2:30 in the afternoon, and Tyler Glasnow is a Cincinnati Red. There we go. So yeah, please say hi if you're there. I'd love to meet some of you folks that are supporters of the show and have helped really grow the show to heights that we never ever anticipated this year. So, Bryce, appreciate you coming on last minute here as we, anytime there's news, we'll try to come live as soon as possible. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope to see you at Reds Fest. Go Reds.